We're now up to Standard 3, which is Information and Knowledge. And for Standard 3, I have included 3 artifacts that showcase what I've learned in the past 2 years. Those 3 artifacts are the materials order, the online catalog, and the Bloom's meets digital media in the form of a Gliffy project. So we'll start with materials order. The materials order assignment, was created in the fall of 2014 for Library Science 5113. I was tasked with creating a purchase order for new materials in the existing library. I was given $1,000 to improve a collection. I selected the East Central Junior High, or ECJH library, to examine and make purchases that would benefit student learning. I first spoke with the school librarian to determine what she felt the weakest area of our current collection was. I then reviewed the library inventory and checkout data to determine strengths in the collection. It was with this data I recognized 2 shortages in the collection, specifically science nonfiction and Spanish titles. From there, I went through the science nonfiction materials and learned that we would soon be receiving a STEM teacher, a STEM class at our school. And our current library collection had no materials that would benefit the STEM program and would really kind of eliminate the cross-curricular that could happen with the STEM teacher and the librarian, because we did not have resources. The other major shortage was in the Spanish language section, fiction and nonfiction. We didn't have hardly any. And we are, 45–50% Hispanic, Spanish speaking in our school. And so these 300 students had maybe 3 dozen books that they could share to read. So how are we promoting their reading? That we're certainly not. So this was where my focus was. And so before I came up with this materials order right here, I first spoke with the science department because we didn't have a STEM teacher yet. So I spoke with the science department about what a STEM classroom looks like, what kind of things they would need, what would be good topics to help them. And then I talked to the ELL teacher to identify what kind of materials would benefit those learners. And then I used Tidal Wave by Follett's Tidal Wave system to locate books, to conduct some research about quality titles that were, purchased frequently for these two main points. And so, as you can see on here, I've selected 6 hard books, hardback, regular print sources to benefit STEM. 5 ebooks, because we do have 4 iPad cards in the school that we share. So 5 ebooks that could be used, and the STEM classroom is going to have 1 whole ebook cart, iPad cart to themselves. So 5 ebooks that they could use. And then I found, because we have so many Hispanic population, I found some science text that would benefit the STEM, because there are going to be Spanish-speaking students in the STEM class. So kind of those first 6 texts, I found some similar texts that would be in Spanish that would kind of help those ELL students. And so then as we come down, there were a few books that were fiction series where the newest book came out. So I went ahead and grabbed those because these Barry Lyga series, it's a murder mystery series, very popular amongst our kids. The Rick Riordan series are super popular, so I purchased those, the newest of that, and then the James Patterson. These books are off the shelf all year, so I went ahead and made those selections as well. And then I purchased some fiction books series that are very popular with the English-speaking students, checked out all the time, and I found them in Spanish, thinking that they would probably be equally, selected for reading for pleasure by the Spanish population. And so I selected I selected those books, and then kind of took that together and sent it off to Follett to get this purchase order right here, to get this purchase order, and the grand total was $999.15, and I had $1,000 to spend to benefit the collection, and I got 23 hardback books and 5 ebooks for that cost. So let's just go back to the actual assignment. And I think this really helped me to, this really, I think, works into the Standard 3 Information and Knowledge standard for a number of reasons. I believe that it fits into Standard 3, 3.1, 3.2, and 3.4. Standard 3 requires the librarian to model and promote ethical, equitable access to and use of physical, digital, and virtual collections of resources. In order to model and promote the use of informational resources, it's essential that the library have a good selection available. You can't model it, you can't provide access to it if you don't have it. So being able to assess your library and make purchases is really the first step in being able to promote ethical, equitable access. So I started there. And then 3.1, efficient and ethical information seeking behavior. This competency requires the teacher librarian to identify and support learner needs. Prior to making the Follett Tidal Wave purchase order, I spoke with the school librarian, the science department, and the ELL department to identify collection and learner needs. I then made selections that would support these needs and create an environment that supported collaboration. The purchase of the nonfiction materials would allow the librarian and teachers to co-plan and co-teach lessons to enhance student learning and engagement in the ELL classroom, in the science classroom, in the STEM classroom, in multiple classrooms. The purchase of fiction materials would support the students' reading and literacy needs, and the materials would assist Spanish-speaking students in reading for information, pleasure, and lifelong learning. I think it also addresses 3.2 because 3.2 requires access to information. When you examine the current collection, I realized there was this physical barrier to equitable access for the Hispanic population. We had 300 kids trying to read, 25 books. That's not providing access. So I overcame this physical barrier by purchasing fiction and nonfiction materials in print and electronic formats for the Spanish, written in the Spanish language, specifically to address the needs of that population. There was also a physical barrier for English-speaking students to access, science literature, because again, we didn't have any of those. And so by purchasing this new material, I'm providing access to the Spanish students in fiction and nonfiction, and I'm providing access for students in science classes to quality, updated science text in a variety of formats. And then finally, we have 3.4, research and creation. Prior to making the purchase order, I analyzed checkout data and conducted research in the form of interviews to determine what would best help the student population. I wanted to make sure that I did not duplicate what was already available, and so I had to analyze the data and interview the stakeholders to determine what really needed to be purchased. Overall, this assignment helped me as an educator because I had very little experience with evaluating a collection for weaknesses. I was able to learn from the librarian how to analyze the data using the online catalog system and the importance of touching the books in the curriculum, of touching the books in the collection. After looking at the data, the librarian and I realized very few science materials were leaving the library. When we went to look at those science sections, we found books in excellent shape that were written 15 years ago. This is a disservice for students. They were unable to access quality current information. Determining the needs of the library and making a purchase order helped me to understand the importance of staying on top of the needs, so that purchases can be made when the funds become available that will benefit all students in learning and reading. Reading for learning, reading for personal growth, reading for enjoyment, just reading. I also, by speaking with the various departments, I realized that many teachers don't know what resources are in the library, and that was really surprising to me. we have science teachers. I remember one of the science teachers saying that he had never been in the library except for professional development when we're required for a staff meeting. He had no idea what was in the library, no idea what was in the library that could help his curriculum, and he just kind of worked in his own little world. He never collaborated with the library, and that was really surprising to me. So this project really helped me to understand that as a librarian, you kind of need to advocate for you. You have to advocate for what you can do for everyone else, because those teachers, they aren't just coming in and saying, I need your help, I want your help, can you help me do this? So you need to be a voice and say, this is what I can do for you, these are the resources I have. And so this project really helps me to understand that as the librarian, I need to go and I need to offer my services and I need to offer my resources and I need to kind of be a commercial for myself about how I can enhance their kids, their literature, their curriculum, the literature they use, and enhance their students' learning. Now, if I were to use this artifact again, I would probably not talk to the science department, or not only talk to the science department. The science and STEM are two different things, and at the time I thought science was STEM, and now I have a better understanding of what STEM is. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And at the time we didn't have a STEM teacher, but the district did have a STEM program, and I could have sought advice from the STEM program coordinator about materials to purchase. If I was to recreate this purchase order, I think I would probably talk to the STEM person to get ideas to make sure that what I'm selecting for the STEM class can actually be used with the 7th and 8th grade STEM program that will happen at East Central Junior High. The science teachers were kind of just making a gamble. They were just making a guess based on what they knew about STEM. And so I think if I did it again, I would definitely want to talk to the STEM person just to make sure that the materials are spot on with what they're going to teach in my school. That's the only thing that I would have changed about this project. I think it was really beneficial to my learning.